Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by Fan Arch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, author of The Voices of Hockey. Broadcasters reflect on the fastest game on earth, and coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State. LGRW from the PNW, folks. Now, the Red Wings were not in action yesterday as they were preparing for tonight's game against the Islanders. Fresh off their six-game road trip in which they went 4-1-1, the Red Wings have their work cut out for them tonight, because the Islanders have handed them their two worst losses of the season. Both losses were by 5 goals apiece, so pretty ugly. But the Red Wings are a lot different look that going into tonight's game. Gibby's playing a lot stronger. He's doing a lot better work there between the pipes there. So I think this is a different looking team. Now, one thing the Red Wings have going against them is Showtime is going to be out the next couple of games. That's a tough one, especially when he's sitting on the precipice of those 500 goals. He's at 498, fresh off a game against Chicago in which he got a goal to leave a little memento to leave them by, as if the 3 cups as a Blackhawk weren't enough. He left him a little memento on the way out the door. But one thing that the Red Wings really need to do is gain a little bit of confidence against this team and try to light the lamp a few times rather than get it lit against them a few times. That's what's been the problem. Game's been getting out of hand way too soon, and they haven't been able to walk away with a W. Going to the actual league and the ladder, we'll talk about the standings. We'll get to the Atlantic Division last, though. Let's start with the Metropolitan. In the Metropolitan Division, Carolina reigns supreme, and they're followed by the Islanders. So obviously the Islanders are a good team. It's not just some kind of fluke loss 2 times to a team that has no business beating the Red Wings. The Islanders are in second place, and then very closely behind them is the Capitals. The Capitals were in first. It's not like they've tapered off or anything like that. They're still pretty hot. They're just not as hot, maybe a game less hot than they had been. So there's how the Metropolitan's shaping up. Moving over conferences into the Western Conference, the Central Division of the Western Conference is very tough. The 2 best teams in the league, Colorado Avalanche and Dallas Stars, are at the top there. Colorado has still only lost 2 regulation games all season. So that's something that is just still mind-boggling. I think the one negative about it, though, is they have a lot of overtime and shootout losses. But anything's better than a regulation loss. They still have the most points. Dallas is only about 4 behind them. And then sitting in third in that division is Minnesota. And Minnesota has the 4th most points in the NHL. The only team that has more points besides Dallas and Colorado, the only team that has more points than Minnesota is Carolina. So Minnesota, fresh off that acquisition of Quinn Hughes, it's been the talk of the league. In fact, I am so done with the talk of Quinn Hughes. Now that it's done and said and done, we can move on to whoever's the next big possible bait out there. But still, enough is enough. He's been traded finally. I know there was a lot of talk about him coming to the Red Wings. He didn't. Maybe that's bitterness from me that he didn't. But we're looking pretty good right now. We're pretty solid. I think one of the other positions may come up that we may need. So maybe we feel like we don't have to give away a lot to get somebody like Quinn Hughes. And obviously Minnesota felt a different way to basically win the Quinn Hughes sweepstakes. But moving over divisions in the Western Conference to the Pacific, the Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks are tied for first atop the Pacific. They are both at 41 points. Vegas has 2 games in hand, though, on Anaheim. So it is interesting to see Anaheim and the Kings. There's a couple of stories there in that division. But Anaheim with Joel Quenneville now behind the bench there, and Jacob Trouba over there on defense coming over from New York. This has been an interesting situation for the Ducks to be as competitive as they are, and the Kings are really coming into their own as well, and they're being pretty competitive, not too far behind Anaheim and Vegas in that division. This is Anze Kopitar's swan song, so obviously that brings a lot of emotion with it, and the team wants to play more competitively and really make a difference in that last season for a surefire Hall of Famer like Kopitar. So that's how those other three divisions are panning out. But back to our division, the Atlantic Division. I think I mentioned before that the Red Wings and the Lightning are a virtual tie right now for first place as a result of the Lightning losing last night to Florida, getting beat 5-2, I believe was the final score. But that leads us into Tantrum Tuesday, because yesterday we had Jake Gensel and Nico Mikkola going at it. And this is what happened. Gensel was going in on Bob, trying a shot, missed the shot. The momentum carried him behind the net, and in comes Mikkola, just gives him a straight up, just clocks him right in the face. Gensel's not a fighter. In fact, the broadcaster said, I could probably count on one hand the amount of games or amount of fights that Gensel has been in his career. So he took a little exception to getting clocked in the side of the head, went after Mikkola, and refs broke it up, 5 for fighting. Mikkola didn't get the penalty that the broadcasters expected him to get with that shot he took on Gensel. But like I said, it was kind of it wasn't like marquee fight or anything like that, but I think a lot of people just thought it was very interesting that Gensel got so fired up. He doesn't look like the kind of fiery kind of player as far as getting the physical. He's better known for a score. He did so well in Pittsburgh all those years, and he's doing great for Tampa Bay. So not the juiciest of Tantrum Tuesdays, but it is still interesting. I think the real story is the fact that Florida is starting to wake up a little bit. Obviously, we knew this was going to happen. This is a team that is verging on a dynasty, and you still got a Tampa Bay team that still knows how to play. Cooper has really brought these guys around. One of the things that was mentioned in the Voices of Hockey is the fact that they've played a lot of hockey over a short period of time. They went 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, and won 2 of them, and then lost the third trip to the Stanley Cup final in 2022 to the Colorado Avalanche. But like he said, this is like Dave Mishkin of the Tampa Bay Lightning said. He said this is a team that's still young, but they've played a lot of hockey, and that can really take it out of you. And I think the Florida Panthers are starting to get in that class as well. One thing that a lot of people might not stop to think about is the fact that the state of Florida has been in 6 straight Stanley Cup final appearances. That is dating back to the first of the back-to-back for the Lightning. Like I said, the third time to the Cup final, lost to Colorado. And then the next year, Florida loses to the Vegas Golden Knights, and then the next 2 years they beat the Edmonton Oilers. So 6 straight Stanley Cup final appearances for the state of Florida, 4 cups between 2 teams. These teams are going to be at it with each other. They're going to be in each other's business. They're not going to let up, and they are coached by 2 amazing coaches. You got Paul Maurice on one end, and you got John Cooper on the other. Those kinds of things all add up. It just shows that these 2 are going to make a run at each other. I'm guessing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, they have not failed to do that. So we'll see who ends up on what side of the face-off circle, who ends up in what seeding when it comes playoff times. But I'm pretty sure that both those teams are going to be there once the Stanley Cup playoffs come around. Now, today's spotlight is going to be a quick one because there's not much to talk about, but I really do have a lot of hope for this particular player, and that's Marco Casper. He's only got 3 goals and an assist on the season. In fact, I think he's only had 1 assist since those 2 goals he scored against LA on October 30th. So we're talking almost 2 months worth of games and really only 3 points among it. But Marco has his other assets that he brings to the team. And that's, the big stat is that he has 78 hits. He's on the 3rd line with Nate D and Soderblom. He doesn't really factor in on the special teams, either on the power play or the penalty kill. But you need to keep an eye out for him because last season he almost scored 20 goals. And I think I had mentioned before, Patrick Kane is out of the lineup for the next couple of games. This might be a time for Marco to kind of generate a little bit of offense, kind of fill in that void. Kane has been obviously scoring a lot of points. I think he's 3rd in the or third, or actually might be fourth behind Marco or before Lucas Raymond. But with that absence, at least this next couple of games, it's might be a good time for Marco in the center spot to come up and really contribute a little bit more and see if he can up his points on the season. Now that brings us to the no cap recap. And speaking of Patrick Kane, on the cusp of the 500 goal mark, 2 goals to go. Speaking on after the game against Chicago, they had him in the locker room, and this is what he had to say. We'll just throw this in the AI translator and just not even tell you what he said, and we'll just basically give you some AI slang courtesy of Showtime. So the first couple times out there, we're fire. We're straight up vibing. Dudes were clocking us hard in the first half. Second half, things kind of chilled, but it was clutch again, getting us up in a good spot. Up 2. I guess I kind of spaced how wild it is. You just kind of take it for granted. The national anthem was bonkers. Blaze was jumping tonight. Can't remember if it's always that nuts, to be honest. That ish gets you hyped instantly. And obviously kicking things off like that, banging in 2 goals in the first 2 shifts, that was straight up money. Surreal coming back and seeing the Kane jerseys in the mix, Detroit jerseys too, and getting to chill with the fans a bit after the game. Real cool that it's a once-a-year thing and you can come back and soak it all in. And Kane was able to soak it all in. Got yet another goal against his former team and got plenty of cheers from the hometown crowd who would love to just always thank him for those 3 cups he brought them. But hopefully he can bring a little bit something to the Red Wings in the form of a playoff appearance. And, for the first time in 10 years, it'll be nice if the Red Wings get back in the Stanley Cup playoffs and reset the clock on that, consecutive seasons in a playoff appearance streak that was ended at 25, in Larkin's first season. So Larkin's become a grown-up now. Red Wings are working their way back to it. They're in first place this deep in the season. That's actually a very positive sign. It's a good thing to think about. We'll have to see as the trade deadline comes up who we might be looking at, where some of the holes are in our offense or defense, what we need to do. But in the meantime, they're really working well. McClellan's got them nice and disciplined, and hopefully that discipline will show in an actual win against the Islanders and not a 5-goal loss. Tonight's the night. We'll see how it goes. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight. And once again, folks, LGRW from the PNW.